December 12th, 1956. Japan is admitted to the United Nations after withstanding a vigorous butt paddling from Sweden to cap off Pledge Week. All right, we're warmed up. The juices are flowing. Welcome to the Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn. Juices flowing, Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Zach, you did not update us on your juices? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've had a lot of apple, a little bit of cranberry. Yeah, some orange in the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the state of my juices. It's a mix of those. Capri Sun, I don't know if that counts. I think
Capri Sun, I don't think counts as juice.
Yeah, I feel like it's 1% juice at best and 0% juice at worst.
Does Capri Sun count as juice? Listeners, tune in next time to find out.
Yeah, we have a poll on Twitter right now.
Yep. Joining us, providing me a convenient out from the spiral I'm getting into. Returning friend of the show, Allison Rose, everyone.
Hey, hello. I will not be giving you an update on my juices.
I was not going to ask. Sorry, I even raised the specter of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never asked anybody about their juices. That's a Brian thing where he just starts conversation.
Okay, no, it's not a Brian. It's a thing I did once, just now.
Once a day or so, whenever we hang out in public. We used to do comedy shows. You'd greet all the comedians by saying, "Nice to see you, such and such. Hey, Aaron Urist, how are your juices today?"
Hope you're at least 1% juice. It's the minimal juice that every person should have at any point.
I mean, that's really, the hang is really the magic of live comedy. So
Brian has accidentally screen shared with us, and he has 18 tabs open, all with the word juice in them.
Somehow grapefruit's the most disturbing still. I don't know why.
Is the COVID vaccine a juice? I don't even know what that means.
Oh, so they're like conspiracy juice pages.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, some of them are.
Worse.
One or two is definitely Pornhub.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can start.
You wanted me to get you out of that spiral. Did not help.
No, I was hoping.
I will always take you further down the spiral of juice.
It's fine. I can start recording now. Listeners, if you're new to the show, what we do every episode is not this, typically.
It is this, usually, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of this. Each episode, we take a topic from history, and one person presents the USDA-approved 100% juice, no pulp version of events, and another person comes up with a Capri Sun, Minute Maid, High C, all pulp all the time, baby.
1% history at best.
Alternate history. By the way, this episode is brought to you by Simply Orange. Florida's natural. Last time out, we discussed the Black Plague because we're talking about medical history.
One of our lightest topics.
Truly.
No, but truthfully, a record for body count that we will probably never pass.
Hopefully
on this.
Never pass.
Yeah.
Hopefully is the key word there. I mean, the way history is going.
Yeah. We're going to be doing the show still in 2035 because there's nothing left to do in the caves except record podcasts. And we'll be like, 2021, 1.6 billion perished.
All from the new Apple AirBuds. We didn't realize they just had nails in them.
Wow. I mean, if that's how it happens, we kind of deserve it.
Yeah, it's true.
1.6 billion people accidentally put nails into their own ears until they were dead.
Yeah, Jesus. Let's go back to the juice riffs.
Really? That was okay. Just getting the temperature. We don't have results for that one yet, but we do have results for Phineas Gage with friend of the show, Josh Hollis. The alternate history won out, where Phineas Gage traveled the land, putting holes in people for piercings, and helped invent gauges.
The ear gauge, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a man obsessed with holes
Yes.
in heads.
Yes. Holes in heads and holes on DVD.
Big LaBeouf fan. Yeah.
Yep. Early LaBeouf.
Uh-huh.
Still, my favorite thing about Shia LaBeouf is that in French, his last name translates to the beef.
Yeah.
So it's just how I picture him now. We are closing out medical history this time, though, by talking about Rebecca Lee Crumpler. Zach, you're going to be doing the actual history.
Yep.
And then Allison's going to be doing the alternate. If we're all ready, Zach, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So Rebecca Lee Crumpler was born in 1831 in Delaware as Rebecca Davis. Though she was a black woman, but she was born free, not a former slave, despite the fact that obviously in 1831, the Civil War had not yet occurred. So slavery was technically legal in these United States, but she was raised in Pennsylvania by her aunt. Her aunt was sort of an unofficial doctor in her community. She was not recognized as a doctor, but she took care of the ill. Her aunt, more than anybody else, seemed to deeply inspire her to her future career path. And in 1852, when she would have been 21 years old, she moved to Charleston, Massachusetts. And in 1855, she started working as a nurse before being accepted to the New England Female Medical College in 1860.
That was actually what it was called?
It was the New England Female Medical College, yes.
As in female comedians and female doctors,
Correct, yeah. I think it was across the lake from the New England Male Medical College. The male medical college students would cross the lake and do pranks, and the female medical college would return the favor in the night. I think that's
made it sound like they burned down the other college.
Yeah, it got out of hand, and there was some arson, some mild arson.
Hadn't really mastered pranks in those days,
Yeah.
Yeah, no one had invented fake poop.
Yeah, exactly. Whoopee cushions were still around the corner, but fire was very much a thing.
Mm-hmm. And plenty of real poop just everywhere.
Yeah, real poop. What do you do when you don't have fake poop or rubber chickens? Hey, real poop and real chickens.
Mm-hmm. And real fire for both. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's the Outback Steakhouse motto for a while.
Mm-hmm. Regardless, she was admitted to the New England Female Medical College in 1860 and was the sole African-American student there. She had won a partial scholarship to aid with her costs, in part because she had done such a great job working as a nurse and apprentice that many of her higher-ups had garnered recommendations for her. Obviously, at this time, this might be a shocker, so brace yourselves. It was rare for black people to go to medical school at this time. But it turns out when there's a big-ass Civil War, the need for doctors increases. So they...
I think that was what Lincoln called it, the Gettysburg Address. Yeah. We are now engaged in a big-ass Civil War.
Yeah, so, that increased the admissions of black people around this time to medical school because there was you needed some more doctors. Mm-hmm. At this time, there were about slightly less than 55,000 physicians in the United States. Of that 55,000, 300 of them were women, and of those women, 0 of them were black. So Crumpler was the first black female physician in the United States by the time she graduated in 1864. She had done 3 years of coursework. She had done a thesis, and she was named an MD on March 1st of 1864. Again, the first black woman in the United States to get that honor.
Now, listeners, I will jump in real quick to say, in case you haven't figured out by now, this is one of the episodes where we talk about actual heroes and good people. This is going to be one of those, which is nice.
So last time we had a lot of people dying, and this time people dying is mostly incidental. It does happen, as sometimes occurs in life. I regret to inform you that Rebecca Lee Crumpler, born 1831, is not alive today.
No, she is not a Highlander. Maybe. I don't know, actually. I haven't heard the alternate yet. I shouldn't speak.
Yeah, slight spoiler
That'd be
for
insane.
what's coming in my version, at least. Anyways, after becoming an MD, she initially worked in Boston. She mostly worked with poor children and African-American women, often, for reduced or no cost. She moved to Richmond, Virginia after the war and aided the disenfranchised populations in the Virginia area, in particular, recently freed slaves. Obviously, after the war, there were quite a few freed slaves. And she noted that while she was working there for several years, quote, in the last quarter of the year 1866, I was enabled to have access each day to a very large number of indigent and other different classes in a population of over 30,000 colored. So she was caring for a pretty wide breadth of people. She also worked for the Freedmen's Bureau to aid freed slaves because frequently white physicians would not see freed slaves. They just wouldn't do doctor stuff for them. So good times.
Yep. Which you'd think goes against the whole thing about being a doctor.
You would think a lot of things about history, but
yeah, that's true.
She worked for now you'd think the people who worked at the Freedmen's Bureau would be the least racist people around, and maybe they were, but she was still subject to intense racism from others in her department, as well as sexism. Often her prescriptions would just not be filled, or her coworkers and higher-ups would simply ignore her. Some claimed that her title MD stood for mule driver. So obviously, not even the people working for the Freedmen's Bureau, nominally for the betterment of freed slaves, not the best.
Yeah, Jesus.
But later in her career, she returned to Boston, where she again treated children. She often did this completely for free for poor families. In the 1870s, she furthered her education in West Newton English and Classical School. No female in the title this time. Just a normal-ass school.
Yes,
Probably
a normal-ass school. West Newton, English and...
classical school.
Fig Newton.
There's a pretty good chance it was still an all-female school, and they just didn't advertise it as much.
That is actually true.
She specialized in mathematics at that time. And then she returned to Delaware, where she mostly taught for several years in various different fields. In 1883, she published a book. It was called A Book of Medical Discourses. It was pretty heavily focused on preventative medicine for women and children, particularly women of color. Preventative medicine was somewhat unpopular in Ocean at the time. People just thought disease has a cause and we could treat it once the cause appeared. It had nothing, it was still a ways before people were like, cigarettes might be bad.
Yeah.
So there were also some homeopathic remedies in it, and it also had autobiographical details, including some moral, social, or even romantic advice, such as ideal ages or circumstances for marriage. So, she did a little Dear Abby in the middle of her medical textbook.
That's cute. What's the ideal age? Is it past 30?
I would imagine under 30 for the
this time period.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, this was a while before the 40 is the new 20.
Yeah,
thing, I guess.
This was when 10 was the new 20. Wait,
Oh,
20
God.
was the new 10. I should say 20 was the new 10. That was about where they were in the 1800s.
Yes, that makes sense.
So anyways, at this time, this is a little fun fact, writings and books by African-American authors had prefaces and introductions written in the style of white males or by white males to give them authentication. But Crumpler was able to introduce her own text without a white dude being like, here's the intro, you can trust this one. Jeez. Which I guess is what happened at the time.
So this would be something that the publisher would basically require.
Yeah, it seems like it was I don't think it was like a I don't think it was by law or anything. But I think in order to make a book seem palatable to the masses that was written by a non-white author, probably you needed a white person to be like, hey, this one's all right, and I say so right up top. So
sure.
Yeah.
But Crumpler was able to get by writing her own introduction based on her own authority. So quite good for her. So she, in terms of her personal life, briefly, her initial marriage in 1852 was to a former slave named Wyatt Lee, which is why she was no longer Rebecca Davis. At this point, she became Rebecca Lee, obviously. So she married him in 1852. And in 1853, Wyatt's son from his previous marriage died at age 7, which possibly was an influence on her lifelong pursuit of children's health and aiding children. Her husband, Wyatt himself, died in 1863 of tuberculosis. And 2 years later, she married a man named Arthur Crumpler. Crumpler was a fugitive slave from Virginia. His surname, Crumpler, was inherited from the man who owned his father as a slave. Arthur lived with a neighboring family to the Crumplers, the Adamses. And this is just this weird thing. He remained with the Adamses after, on the day of an estate sale where much of Crumpler's family was sold off, he won a wrestling match at age 9 with their son, John Adams, and so they decided to keep him. Weird ass shit. I don't know what was going on in the South back then. I do. It was bad.
I was going to...
But also, yeah, I don't know what this particular incident was all about. But yeah, that is apparently the situation. He would be able to later in life find one of his sisters, but never found the rest of his family. Arthur, like I said, became a fugitive slave and served in the Union Army and was trained as a blacksmith. So in his own right, I think a pretty impressive dude.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur and Rebecca had a daughter named Lizzie in 1870. And Rebecca spoke at the funeral for the noted abolitionist Senator Charles Sumner, who you might remember as the guy who got beat with the cane by the racist guy.
I mean, the fact that that's what he's remembered for is a bit sad.
Yeah, I mean, he got beat with a cane for saying slavery should be illegal, and this awful fucking senator beat him on the floor of Congress.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the thing where he gets remembered more for getting his ass beat than for standing up against the worst institution possible.
But Rebecca was able to speak at his funeral in 1874. She recited a poem that she wrote for him. The only thing I could find in the poem was that it talked about his reverence for Emerson. So there you go. In 1880, Arthur and Rebecca went back to Boston. She died in 1895 and Arthur died in 1910. So 15 years later. There's a few things named after her, as you might expect. The Rebecca Lee Society, which is a medical society for African-American women, is named after her. Her former home is preserved and is a stop on certain historical tours. Syracuse University also has a club that is intended to encourage the pursuit of medical science for people of diverse backgrounds, named after her. Mm-hmm. And in July of this year, she and her husband, Arthur, received proper new granite headstones to better commemorate their resting places. So,
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, eventually things, just wait almost 100 years and you'll get a gravestone. That's good. Good. Great.
There are no surviving images of Rebecca, but yeah, that is the story of Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first Black female physician in the United States.
Zach, thank you. Mm-hmm. Allison, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Mm-hmm. I feel like whenever I do this podcast, I'm like, I'll do the fictional one. And it's always like the story of someone who it's lucky their story is told at all. So when I'm like going to rewrite it, I'm like, This is rewriting history. It's
You're
a
really
bad thing.
you have to pick a poison, because you're either going to do the story of somebody who's like, oh, this is a genuine hero, and it's hard, like, their story's so inspirational, it seems disrespectful to rewrite it, or this is a story where 80,000 people died, and I have to make it hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point when I was doing the Black Plague one when I was just like, oh no.
Yeah. One time we covered like things about the rubber trade, and it's like, hey, this is going to be a fun little rewrite.
Okay. Well, anyway, I read the actual history and I had that, realization of, rewriting a hero story. But here's the thing. Actually, Rebecca Lee Crumpler absolutely did everything that you found on the internet about her. But, obviously that's not all she did, because history left out a ton of shit. And obviously you guys wouldn't know about it. And telling it as a man, you clearly left out some stuff. So I'm just going to fill in the blanks.
I intentionally left out, I did the Rebecca Lee Crumpler male interpretation. I left it to you to do the Rebecca Lee Crumpler female interpretation of her.
Right. I went to a female interpretive college, so I am all set. So anyway, she was born in 1831 in Delaware, yes. And yes, she had an incredibly cool aunt who cared for sick neighbors. But that cool aunt also, as cool aunts, smoked a lot of weed, and one time did mushrooms with her at the beach. This is a very rosy-colored history, okay? Left out all that stuff you mentioned. No, thank you. We're going cool drug history. This is what happened. Did mushrooms with her aunt, before she went to college. And yes, she moved to Massachusetts, where she worked as a nurse, but also because you can't survive on a nurse's income, especially then, all on its own. So she secretly owned and built her own business, selling mushrooms,
Okay. When you started saying built your own business, I was like, oh, okay. And then nope.
No, we are
back
going back
to
mushrooms. Just as rosy as this story could possibly get.
Any kind of mushrooms, or just the psychedelic kind?
No, the fun kind and the extra fun kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. So like shiitakes or like
shiitakes
are fun, and then there's extra fun.
Yes.
She didn't sell the poison ones. Not on the table. Those are not fun.
No.
No.
Those are bad time mushrooms.
Only slightly poison.
It's like the phantom thread.
Okay. But yeah, so she had that business selling the fun and the extra fun and not the not fun. You have to work multiple jobs as a woman, making it on your own. And most people wouldn't hire her. So hence the mushrooms that she originally got from her cool aunt. And yes, she did graduate medical school, and she published a book in 1883. But before that, in the 70s, selling mushrooms, even in the 1870s, they were a big deal. So
everything's cyclical like that.
Yes, time repeats, and it's not often good. But the drug eating is a perk of that. So she was selling mushrooms in the 1870s to Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, who, as you know, clearly with your history knowledge, established germ theory of disease, which happened one night when she decided, normally she didn't trip with her customers, but they seemed cool for some reason. I know you said a lot of people weren't cool back then, but...
Yeah.
But occasionally Charles Sumner was cool, I guess. So, it stands to reason there was at least a couple other cool people.
A couple, yes. So she decided, okay, this Pasteur guy is kind of cool. I'm going to trip with them. And they were hanging out, playing with their microscopes and science stuff. And one of them was like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe there's specific reasons that people are getting sick. Because before that, everyone just thought diseases just kind of popped out of nowhere. But as the three of them, sat laughing around.
Sorry, I'm laughing at that interpretation of it, but it's actually so close to what they actually believe that it's fairly alarming.
Yeah. But okay, so they're all sitting around and they're like, maybe there's a reason for these things because, they were thinking about the reasons for everything. Dr. Crumpler said, yeah, because everything is connected. Like, remember how you guys touched that dead guy last week and then touched that alive guy and then that alive guy died of what killed that dead guy? Maybe you were the connection between them, just like our feet connect us to the ground and our souls connect us to the universe. And they were like, whoa. And, they established germ theory.
Yeah,
after
for
that.
the first time, they could literally see the germs in the air.
Just everywhere. She let them take credit for that because no one would believe her. But they would believe two tripping men back then.
Who apparently like to touch dead and alive dudes.
That is mostly what doctors did.
That's actually, yeah, that's true.
I mean, a lot of doctors still do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But not like they're playing bongo.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like a rhythm game.
Right. Well, now they wash their hands in between, which is what this moment in history brought. Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. So she helped establish germ theory, and then after that, she wrote the book. Spent very few hours sleeping, and instead spent every night she wasn't tripping, studying, and every day she wasn't working, tripping. And then she developed the first vaccines for cholera, anthrax, rabies, tetanus, and diphtheria. Oh. Didn't notice you give her credit for any of that in your actual history, but she did it again in the 70s. And she had to, of course, drop those vaccines off with other doctors along with their mushroom orders so that they could distribute them to the general public.
Yeah.
I noticed also that she's a mushroom distributor who almost never hangs out with the buyers, which is, from what I understand, very cool of her.
Yes. Actually, I've never had a mushroom dealer hang out with, have you? Yes. Never mind. We'll keep going with history and facts. I made that up entirely. I've never met a mushroom dealer. But
I literally was like, did she also discover anthrax? And I looked it up. You know who did?
Who?
Fucking Robert Koch.
Ow.
Yep.
Well, he probably saw it then when they were... She's responsible for a lot of things. And she made sure that all the things she was responsible for discovering also got solved. Just a polite way to discover things is also fixing them after you find out they're real. But just developed 5 vaccines, wrote a book, discovered germs, married 2 men, all of this while existing in the past, which is quite a feat. And then finally, she did not die in 1985.
Much like Tiny Tim.
Yes. A lot in common. 64 would have been a reasonable age to die in those times, and an expected old age. But given she was a pioneer of medicine, clearly she didn't die that young, knew some stuff about health and living. So instead, in 1984, Dr. Crumpler invented time travel. I feel like this is also the out I use in every history story. I'm like, let's go somewhere else.
It's a convenient one.
Yeah. Just flop with the timeline just a bit. She invented a time machine, and instead of going forward in time, as you would think that she might, she actually went back in time because there was a little problem in the timeline. She went back in time to invent medicine. Somehow there was a time loop that she was a part of.
Sure.
So she had to ensure the safe birth after studying.
She had to kill Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, caught up in many movie plots. But she ensured the safe birth and subsequent early education of Hippocrates. Yes, who as you know, and all the listeners probably know, is considered to be the father of medicine. And could she have gone back in time and simply fathered medicine herself? Probably, yes, absolutely. But she knew it wouldn't be fully accepted, so she mothered the father and invented the field of work, And Hippocrates, of course, also famous for inventing the theory of humors. That's because Rebecca was also very, very funny. So she had it all.
For thousands of years, no one knew it was a pun.
She went back, it's like, here you go. Humor. And he just misunderstood.
History's longest brick joke is...
Awesome. It's paying off here tonight. Love it.
Okay. Yeah. She was about to jump forward in time again, to do the usual stuff to kill Hitler and invent every single vaccine. When the Peloponnesian War broke out. And she didn't know about it. She's, clairvoyant, knows about everything in time.
What?
But well, I mean, clearly she knew when to go back and invent medicine. Like, she's got somehow all of history and in her head, but you can't hold everything in your head. This is connected to the mushrooms, I think. That's too much knowledge for one brain. So she, being a woman, just left out the war parts. So she wasn't expecting, the Peloponnesian War when it happened.
The problem is, at those female schools, they skip the war. The teachers are like, women don't need to know about this, but, it's important.
It's very
important. They underestimate the need.
Because it will happen when traveling through time. Quite regularly, wars will pop up. You don't want to be caught with your skirt up when a war happens,
Jesus.
But I don't know. Is this how people talk to each other now? I don't know. But so the war happened all of a sudden, and she was about to jump forward in time to do all the good things, and then she was just like overcome with all the heartache and unnecessary death of war. So yes, she lived through the Civil War, but a brain can only retain so much information, so she'd forgotten it immediately. So this war was very triggering, and she didn't understand why. There's just too many womanly feelings, really. Now, so at this point, if you do the math, Hippocrates was born in 460, Peloponnesian War in 431 BC, so that makes her 93. She spent 3 years as a nurse, 93 to 96, in this war, helping out, as she did. And ultimately, she never jumped forward in time and invented, all the useful vaccines that we could have used now in the future. Never killed Hitler, never did any of those things, because she felt too much compassion during the war, and got trapped and died way back in the past. So really just goes to show that women shouldn't be super genius time traveling doctors, because their hearts are too big, So she died. She died in 428 BC, giving the first chocolate chip cookie to a fallen soldier in Greece.
Which was really the only treatment they had with the ingredients and equipment available at the time.
Yeah, she brought back some mushrooms, but they didn't really get very far in those days. Probably responsible for some philosophers too, if you think about it. But,
yeah, that makes sense. The Enlightenment of Athens, basically Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, that whole lineage.
Yes. Responsible for many things.
I'm also like, at a certain point, if you go back in time to just invent the whole field of medicine, like, I feel like that's a lot to ask of a person already, than to also like be like, hey, be sure to kill Hitler too. You know.
She did quite a lot. Yeah. I think so.
It's impressive. It may be only 2 items on the to-do list: invent medicine and kill Hitler, but it's a big to-do list. It is.
Yeah. So, it's
not like pick up kitty litter and grab the laundry. It's,
It's not even like get cake and kill Hitler. It's not even one small and one big. It's two very big. So
it's an ambitious list. It's an ambitious list.
Mm-hmm. But she did her best.
Allison, thank you. Listeners, before we move on to the judgment phase, I just want to remind you that it'd be really chill and cool if you wrote a review on your podcast service of choice, particularly Apple Podcasts, because a lot of people are able to find the show that way. I don't know how any of it works. I secretly don't think anyone does, but that's what we know.
It's Skynet, baby, and Skynet likes Apple reviews.
And you know what? We like Skynet.
We like Skynet.
Skynet.
Yes.
Skynet, you're tops in our book, and we just want to be tops on your list of podcasts.
Skynet, here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to ask us a question, leave us a comment, write us a letter, you can do that at revisionistpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And even, hey, if your pockets are lined and you got a fat Christmas goose on the table already, pledge some support on Patreon.
Throw some geese their way.
Yeah.
You know?
Please, actually, no, please stop throwing geese at us.
Well, I would like the one as big as me.
But, sure. You think you want that, but then you got a man-sized goose coming after you.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, no one wants
Exciting.
to.
We'll change of pace.
This was actually the second year that Denver was doing its geese calling program in the park and then giving the meat to homeless shelters, which I wrote about for the paper last year when it happened and got the only negative feedback I'd ever gotten in my brief journalistic career. Anyway.
Was it J. Jonah Jameson saying not enough pictures of Spider-Man?
It was, actually, which you'd think I did not mention Spider-Man at that point, so there shouldn't have been any pictures of him.
No.
There should always be.
It's true. That's why there were so many pictures of Spider-Man in the Bosnian War.
Yeah. J. Jonah Jameson running that yellow journalism during the Bosnian War.
No one ever talks about how the Daily Bugle covered actual world events.
Yeah.
The Daily Bugle fucked up.
Started the Spanish-American War by saying Spider-Man was coming over from Mexico.
Boy.
Yeah, fucking Green Goblin sunk the Maine. Before we move on, Allison, our listeners can follow you on Instagram.
Yes.
For updates and comedy and content, whatever we post on social media these days.
Yes, content. Much content. All there.
Zach, you co-host Movie Trap.
That's true. It's a film podcast where the three hosts each pick a movie from a very specific category. Most recently, we did actors playing more than one role in a single movie. At the end of each round, we vote on who had the best pick for that theme, and that person gets to pick the next theme for the next three movies. Pretty simple concept. It's a loose excuse for us to talk about movies and have it be slightly gamified. So Brian's been on before and probably will be again. So
yeah. And then as for me, listeners, this is coming out December 12th. So, hey, try not to travel for Christmas and be around a bunch of people.
Hey. Also, I didn't say my handle, which is just as important as people not traveling and killing families and friends.
I would say more.
It's Allie, Allie, Rose Jokes. Follow me there. I will be staying in one place for the rest of the month. So much content.
Yes. Yeah, much content.
Hey.
You might see me get a little yellow wallpaper.
Don't worry, guys. For the rest of 2020, I got about 100 feet of space to explore.
Hey.
Yeah. But that does pull this train into the judgment station. This is one of those things where ostensibly it's hard to, with the story of like a good person who did like brave heroic things, because to find something in the actual history to latch onto, and then B, to write an alternate take about it and risk the thing no one wants of being like, actually, this person was kind of a piece of shit. Fortunately, I think Allison's alternate history supplemented the actual history and added a little spice.
Can I just say briefly, what you did for the alternate history was whenever we do a story about people who are either like clearly victims or clearly like amazing people, that is I call it Paddingtonizing them. Make them as great as possible and make the world better around them. So for like Salem witch trials, my angle was, instead of getting murdered, these women were super scientists who traveled through time. And for Dorothy Vaughan, who helped create the first manned space flight in the United States, the movie Hidden Figures is partially about her. I was like, she invented invisibility and now she has a colony on the moon? Like, that's the way to go. And I fully appreciate that is like, I agree with you 100%. You just got to make them like even better. They did everything they did and they were even better.
Yeah. The heroes get the fun stuff like time travel and invisibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've never been like, this person killed thousands of people and now he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that's a bummer.
Never make history worse.
Yeah, and now he's headlining the MCU. That's what happened. H.H. Holmes is replacing Iron Man.
Yeah, it's weird that he's still dating Aunt May in this one.
But to be fair, yeah, well, he was into Aunt May, but he was dating Pepper Potts. And honestly, being involved with goop is its own form of punishment.
Which could be its own, like, Hydra-like organization.
That's for another alternate.
We can't get into that right now. But Allison, Zach, thank you both so much.
Yeah,
did you make a definitive decision?
Yes. Sorry, I'm casting my vote for Allison's alternate history. But listeners, voting is now open to you on Patreon, and be sure to check out our Instagram story next Wednesday, which is not Christmas Eve, right? No, it's the 23rd. No, it's the 6th. 23rd.
Is it?
Yeah, Christmas
from
is Friday
this
this year, so it's got to be.
From when this is. Please stop messing with my sense of time. It is already so fragile.
Sorry.
No. That's all good. That makes sense.
No, I was telling Allison before recording, I spent all day thinking today was Thursday, and when I found out it was Wednesday, it fucked me right up. But voting will be open for you all then, but that will do it for us here at The Revisionists. I've been Brian Flynn.
I've been Zach Powers.
Have a good time.